Let's bring in CTV News political commentator, former leader of the New Democrats, Tom Mulcair, who's standing by. He, of course, has been watching all of this closely with his thoughts on the King's visit to Canada and the importance of it. Tom, good to see you. Your thoughts?
Good to be with you, Todd. It was an absolutely extraordinary event. As Rachel just said, it can't be understated. The importance, of course, in relation to our dealings with the United States, there were subtle references in the speech, but clear ones nonetheless. I also think that the King was here to remind us of the importance of our institutions overall. We sometimes tend to think that it's normal to live in a democracy that's peaceful, that's long-standing. That's the exception on the world stage, and people can say what they want about a monarchy and about that type of system, and it's open to debate. But you know what? If you take the list of countries that are the most stable and the most prosperous and the most peaceful, they tend to be constitutional monarchies, or at least they occupy the top rungs of that list around the world. The content of the speech is something that I think is worth underscoring. Mr. Carney is not obeying the general political rule of underselling. You know, set the bar low and then you can surpass expectations. None of that for Mark Carney. He set the bar very high for himself, for his ministers, and for his government. And he said, as we mentioned in the lead up, that he's going to reduce radically the increases that we've been going through under the Trudeau governments over the years. 9% increase per year in the size of the government. That makes no sense. And the increase under Trudeau has just been unbelievable. He's paring that back to maximum 2%, and he's also giving a clear signal to his entire ministry that recreation's over. We've got big projects that we want to get through that will help the economy long term. This is a plan for transformation, and the way to do it is to get Canada's economic books back in shape. That's a top priority for his government. Sure, we talked about smaller details like housing, tax cuts here or the dental plan there. Overall, the key message for me in terms of public administration is that Mark Carney means business when he says he's going to start tackling the huge economic problems that were left to him by the Trudeau regime. And I think that that's news that will be welcome on the part of almost all Canadians.
Yeah, Tom, we're just going to show some footage here. These are live pictures coming in from the airport in Ottawa. You're very familiar with it, of course, as the Canadian plane carrying the King and Queen is now taxiing slowly toward the runway. They will soon be heading back, of course, to the United Kingdom. A whirlwind visit, really, just 2 days on Canadian soil, including that really important throne speech. As we continue to watch these pictures here as the King and Queen get set to leave Canada, we did point out that the Queen Elizabeth, gave the speech to the throne in 1957, and then again under Pierre Elliott Trudeau in 1977, and now we have King Charles under Prime Minister Mark Carney. What message do you think it might send to Washington to see this?
Well, it's something that we've been talking a lot about in the past week or 10 days in Canada, is that King Charles III is not just the King of the United Kingdom. He is constitutionally, institutionally, the King of Canada. And when he sends those messages, and they were not going to be too abrupt, but they were clear, sent those messages about Canada's autonomy, perennity, independence. The "don't mess with Canada" message was clear to anybody caring to listen. And I don't think that Donald Trump will be immune to understanding what it could mean. Trump has made it his priority to have his first big trade deal with the United Kingdom. He's avowed his interest in and respect for the institutions of the United Kingdom. So to have the King of Canada, who is at the same time, of course, the King of the United Kingdom, saying these things is something that will not go unnoticed in Washington.
There's also, of course, the pomp and the circumstance, which draws in a lot of people, too, when you see this. And the first time, the King mentioned this, Tom, that he had been to Canada. This was now his 20th visit. I mean, that's a connection that goes back many, many decades as well. A man who knows Canada. I mean, he's been across the country, many parts of Canada over those 20 different visits as well, and his first as king.
Yeah, and can I add a very tiny detail that actually played out in terms of the pageantry and the portrayal of all of these events? Todd, you live in the same region that I do. It's been raining in the greater Ottawa area writ large, in that whole zone, for the better part of a month nonstop. We were all going to start building arcs for each other. Lo and behold, the King gets off the plane, the sun comes out and doesn't leave. They were all out there. They were going in shirt sleeves. You know, nobody was wearing a coat going into the Senate chamber today, and it was quite a spectacle. And it was made all the more beautiful, of course, by that brilliant sunshine. I think it was a reflection of how well we were doing with this event. I think that overall Canadians are going to be very proud of the way things went. There will be tons of debates about the appropriateness of maintaining those ties in the future, and those are fair. But I think that for today, Canadians are looking at this and saying, we've got a government that is very intent on doing what it said it was going to do, cleaning up public finances, and we've got our sovereign, the monarch, who is there sending a clear signal to anybody cares to listen south of the border that Canada is not to be trifled with.
Yeah, a reminder to our viewers what we're showing you on the screen. This is the plane carrying King Charles, Queen Camilla. It is about to take off and head back to the United Kingdom after a whirlwind visit to Canada, 2 days, including the King delivering the speech from the throne earlier today up on Parliament Hill in the Senate chamber as we continue to watch the plane getting ready to leave. And yeah, you rightly point out, Tom, it was actually quite warm in Ottawa today. The temperature was 23, but it felt like 25 degrees in the capital, so that would have been a beautiful day. Sunny skies, not really a cloud in the sky as those Canadian jets flew overhead as well. There's just this really interesting intersection too, isn't there, between the United Kingdom, the United States, and Canada. And you know, we often say that Canadians are sort of, we're different than the Americans, we're different than the British, we bring in European roots. There's all sorts of different things that bring about the so-called Canadian experiment. And you know, the King is well aware of that. So to see this kind of visit is in many ways fascinating.
Yep, and to stay with that European message, I mean, like most European students, when he was younger, King Charles III made it his business to learn other languages, of course, French first among them. And his French is excellent. He had no trouble whatsoever delivering some complex parts to that speech. Some of it was personal and heartfelt. You could sense that. And I think that that's a good message for Canadians, that we have 2 official languages. Our sovereign knows it. And it's a good thing to be able to speak and understand both of them.
We're seeing the plane now as it's getting ready to take off here on its final departure, heading back to the United Kingdom. And, you know, I would say certainly by what we've been watching, Tom, a very successful visit. And hugely successful. And really, you know, to have the King here deliver the speech from the throne at such a turbulent and tumultuous time for Canada, you know, definitely does send a message here. Let's just watch it as it takes off here for a moment. And there we go. And, you know, it's interesting, too. I mean, the King has long talked over the course when he was the Prince of Wales, you know, about the relationship between English and French. He has visited Quebec many times. He's aware that the monarchy was not always popular in that part of the country. There's, you know, a lot of different sort of layers of texture to his relationship with Canada. Let me ask you about Mark Carney as well, because before we go, I want to get your sense of, you know, having this happen so early in his prime ministerialship, so quickly after the election victory for him, to have the King come and do the throne speech. What's your takeaway there, Tom?
No question that this is a major coup for Prime Minister Mark Carney and for his team. It's a shot in the arm. It gave him the opportunity to deliver all of the messages that would normally have been in a throne speech, but the whole country was paying attention. And some of the things that he said were expected. Some, with regard to the relation with the United States, for example, softly done, but clear nonetheless. Some of the predictable stuff on government programs. But the overarching key message from Carney in his speech from the throne, delivered by the King himself, was, we're not fooling around. The government is out of control in the size and the spending. We're going to bring it back because we have a lot of important projects we want to accomplish to boost our economy and increase our productivity long term. Full stop. A gutsy message from Mark Carney, and contrary to all the advice you always get in politics, you know, underplay it, and then if you do better, it looks good. He's intentionally setting the bar so high for himself and for his ministers, saying, this is what we shall accomplish. I think it's a courageous move, and I think that all Canadians, no matter who they voted for in the last election, are listening to that, nodding their heads and saying, Godspeed. I hope that works. And yeah, that's what we need in this country right now.
CTV News political commentator Tom Mulcair joining us from Montreal, former leader of the NDP, with his take today on the King and Queen's visit to Canada, 2 days, and the speech from the throne. They have now departed Canada. They are en route back to the United Kingdom. Good to see you as always, Tom. Thank you for this.
All the best, Todd.
All right, and we're going to have ongoing coverage of that story, of course, throughout the day. The King